In the last 3 days, we've learned a series of potentially damning developments for former President Trump, including news that whatever his former lawyer, Pat Cipollone, told the committee in 8+ hours of closed-door testimony, well, that was enough for one congresswoman to claim evidence of, quote, dereliction of duty.
Of Cipollone's video testimony in this week's hearings.
Yes, we will have some excerpts of Mr. Cipollone's testimony. He was able to provide information on basically all of the critical issues that we're looking at, and including the president's what I would call dereliction of duty on the day of January 6th.
So what else will you hear in the public hearing on Tuesday? Here's what a source familiar with the hearings has told NBC. A former Oath Keepers spokesperson will be a key witness on Tuesday. The focus is connecting the dots from former President Trump's December 19th tweet summoning protesters to the Capitol for a, quote, wild day on January 6th and the resulting violent insurrection. Look for committee member Jamie Raskin to lead that questioning. Oh, and there is somewhat of a wild card that we are watching with close intensity. The name of that wild card is Stephen Bannon. We learned over the weekend that Trump's former strategist is suddenly ready to talk. Bannon's lawyer said he's interested in testifying live on television. Although, keep in mind, that reversal comes just as Bannon is headed to trial for a contempt of Congress charge. His team says the change of heart comes after President Trump wrote a letter waiving any executive privilege he had over Bannon's testimony. The only problem for Bannon is court records just revealed, wait for it, there was never any executive privilege to be waived in the first place. Trump's lawyer told the committee a month ago Trump never blocked Bannon's testimony with executive privilege. And if Bannon only agrees to testify live on television, well, that may never happen anyway.
The way that we have treated every single witness is the same, that they come in, they talk to the committee. If they're going to take a deposition, they're sworn under oath, it's videotaped, it's recorded, and then we take it from there.
Joining now is Harvard Law professor Laurence Tribe, also NBC News legal analyst Joe Wine-Banks, former assistant Watergate special prosecutor. So before we get to Stephen Bannon, I want to talk about what's right in front of us as we sit here today. Tomorrow's hearing will reportedly focus on the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys and their call to action. So Jill, I'll start with you. What does the former prosecutor in you need to hear and see from tomorrow's witnesses?
Of course, what we're looking for is a connection between the president and the violent insurrectionists, between the terrorists, Proud Boys, between Oath Keepers and him. Whether it is direct or it's indirect, remember I was a organized crime prosecutor, so I know about how people operate in that area. They don't directly give orders. They have someone who tells someone else who tells someone else. And so is it Roger Stone who talked to the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys? Who is it exactly that Donald Trump spoke to? We know from Cassidy Hutchinson that he knew that they were armed, he knew they were dangerous, but not to him. So he didn't care. He said, fine, let them into my rally. They can march to the Capitol from the rally. He wanted the crowd to be there, even though he knew they were armed and dangerous. So that's the kind of thing we want to hear, is the direct connection up the chain to who it goes. Is it to Mark Meadows, to the president? Who is it to? That's what we're looking for.
And Professor, in terms of this idea that there was a dereliction of duty, that's the quote that came out of the committee post Pat Cipollone's testimony. When you hear that, you know, does that evoke sort of this idea that there definitely should be criminal charges in a case like this? Is that a violation of the president's constitutional oath? I mean, walk us through this idea, especially when it comes to the intention of the founders, when it comes to the dereliction of duty to the country and how that relates to Trump's conduct here.
Well, the dereliction of duty was an impeachable offense, but the crimes that the president apparently committed, defrauding the United States, fomenting and inciting an insurrection, seditious conspiracy, those crimes are over and above his dereliction of duty. I think what the Congresswoman was saying was essentially, we've seen in Technicolor how the president sat back and enjoyed the mayhem that he had triggered. That will bear on his state of mind. Dereliction of duty is not a separate offense.
And Jill, one of the other things that struck me today as I read an op-ed by former prosecutor Andrew Weissman, again, folks remember the name from the Mueller investigation, and he writes, quote, that we have seen in the unusual public filing of a letter from the Justice Department leadership seeking access to committee evidence, something that is largely unnecessary if it has already been obtained, if it has already obtained that evidence. And the fact that the letter was sent is a clear sign of a breakdown in the relationship between the two branches, something I did not see even during high-profile investigations like Enron and, of course, that Mueller probe. Jill, was that a sort of red flag when we saw the Justice Department request documents and full transcripts from this committee? Is that a signal to you that there might be a breakdown here in the communication?
It was something that concerned me. I know that during Watergate, there was cooperation between the Senate, which was holding simultaneous investigation. They had public hearings while we were going into secret sessions with the grand jury. We wanted to make sure that they were not offering immunity to someone we thought was a key possible defendant. We wanted to make sure that nobody said something inconsistent to us in grand jury that was different than what they said in the public testimony. And so there was some cooperation, and it concerned me. I don't know that there's a complete breakdown. There has been a lot of secrecy from the committee, which they have done very well in terms of making us surprised. And my dog is agreeing with me now. Sorry about that. And if the phone rings again, he will start howling. So I think it is concerning that there might be a breakdown. I think they should be cooperating. There's no reason why they cannot adequately handle each person's needs. Remember, as Lawrence has pointed out, this is not a crime that is being looked at when you talk about a dereliction of duty or an abuse of power. Those are impeachable offenses, but the person who they have committed them is not president, so he can't be impeached. What the Congress is looking at is legislation to prevent him from doing something like this again or any other wrongdoer. What the Justice Department is looking at is, was there something, not abuse of power, but was there a criminal thing? Was there, as Lawrence said, was there a attempt to defraud the U.S. government? Was there something else? Was there just an attempt to interfere with Congress? That in itself is a crime. Was there an insurrection under 2383, which is what I would like to see happen, because that carries not just a 10-year criminal penalty, but it bars you from ever holding public office again. And frankly, for me, the most important is that Donald Trump not be president again and not endanger our democracy.
Professor, last question here. You know, to that point about the potential crimes that are triggered by the conduct as the committee lays it out here, one of the questions I've been thinking a lot about is, what are the consequences of not charging at the end of all of this? What do you think those could be potentially?
I think they could be the end of the rule of law. It's as simple as that. If on the basis of everything we have seen, these offenses are not charged, and this president is not held accountable, there is no limit to what a president of the United States can do to stay in office. No laws will be applicable. That's a terrible situation. That's putting it mildly. We cannot survive as a constitutional democracy if an attempt to seize power by any means necessary, legal or illegal, stealing ballots, defrauding the United States, aiming an armed mob at the Capitol to prevent the transition of power. If those things are not held accountable, we are lost. We cannot afford that.
Sobering words. Professor Lawrence Tribe and Jill Wine-Banks, thank you so much for starting us off. A really important week in the January 6th hearings. We're grateful to both of you for your expertise. Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.